with this person.
Welcome to part 2 of Project Golf, the YouTube series that shows you how to easily make a cheap, basic dirt club car and go and have some serious fun on the gravel. We've had a change of plans. A good friend of mine is Stephen Muller. He and I raced against each other years ago when I was running the Mk4 Golf, and by coincidence he ended up buying that car. I sold it to a guy when I got into Honda Civics who just stuck it in a shipping container, and then the guy offered it for sale and Stephen bought it for his son, and he still has my yellow Mk4 Golf and they still race it. Now if I know a little bit about Hondas, well, Stephen is the guru on Volkswagens. This guy stays up all night and goes without sleep to build VW engines. He's got quite a comprehensive racing career. Tarmac, he's raced and broken just about every Volkswagen known to man. He's got this insane VW bus rat rod in which he set several world land speed records. The Muller family have a business association with Volkswagen going back more than 55 years. He and his brothers currently run one of Sydney's top VW and Audi performance workshops. When he saw the first part of this series, he gave me a call and said, "Bill, I got some parts for a Golf you can have for free." It's a 3-hour drive to his workshop, but I know it's going to be worthwhile. I know it's going to significantly change the amount of work I do on this build, but we're going to end up with a much better product. Well, here I am at Muller at Annan Grove, just one of a number of workshops the Muller organisation runs. How's this for a toy? A serious tar car, this one. Beautifully presented. You wouldn't expect anything less from the Muller boys. I think that sums it up. Look, you might like to see a few go fast bits on a late model Golf. General service area, the boys having their lunch. Hi boys, you're all going to be on YouTube, so look intelligent. Another racing toy up on the hoist. Something seems to be missing. Bits and pieces everywhere in here. A real golf fest. Steve, good to meet you.
Yes, Bill.
Good to catch up with you.
Likewise, it is.
Yeah, you reckon you've got more cars than what's here, more fast ones?
They're tucked away in a good little spot.
Oh, you wouldn't mind giving me a clue about where that is, would you?
Not far from here.
Yeah. What's the focus of your business here?
We are predominantly Audi and Volkswagen service centre, with a more of a focus leading towards performance aspect in the later new model cars, which we're finding exciting.
Good.
So we're enjoying the ride.
And what's your current racing project? Or is there only 10?
Well, we're doing some tarmac this year, but I've always been a dirt driver, and you'll see another Beetle back up at Awaba, which I've got sitting down the trailer down there, which will happen soon. So we'll have a bit of fun with that.
Have you still got that World Championship golf that you took me for a ride in at Wabra and spun and put a tree in my face?
Yeah. Yeah, we've still got that one.
Cool.
Good memory.
Oh yeah, mate. Some things you never forget.
No.
Tree coming at you.
No, but and still, Bill, we've still got your old Golf Mark 1.
Unbelievable.
We've got that, and it'll get reinvented at some stage. She's a bit rusty, but still got the 16 valve 2 litre.
It was rusty when I got it.
I know it was. We found another body shell. We'll probably transfer the parts.
Cool.
So that might come back on the road too.
Steve, I've been googling you on the computer, and I've been quite impressed to find some of the accomplishments that you've achieved. The land speed records just blew me away.
Great fun. My philosophy is put a round peg in a square hole. So, you know, do something out of the box that no one thinks you can do. You know, basically, racing a combi is, who does that? You know,
only you.
Oh well, yeah, and I'm happy to do it because it's really just driving. I love driving. I love being competitive, and an underdog has always been the V-dub. And Bill, you probably know that too. It's always you got a Volkswagen, but you know, at the end of the day, you can really show a clean pair of heels to a lot of people, and they are surprised. I
saw some footage of you on the tube where you'd stayed up all night rebuilding the VW motor, mate. You look like crap warmed up. What was the story there?
Well, we were heading to the Salt, and we had an engine failure just a couple of days before, so we had a lot of time invested. So what we had to do was work very hard and get it down. That was in a Carmen gear actually, so that's another one sitting in the garage that hasn't been out for a while. So there's a few vehicles, but dirt's always something I love because I think it's more challenging. Tarmac is a whole new story for me, and we just did the World Time Attack in a Golf.
Right.
And we did very well with that. We ended up midfield in our class for a first time event, and I think we've got a few more things to show. And the philosophy is also everything we do here a customer can buy, so that's what's important. We support what we do, and I prove it, and that's at the end of the day. This is what I can do, and I did that with a combi also. So.
Mate, you've been very generous and kind in giving me that car with a 2 litre motor in it. Thank you, buddy. It's going to get its tits thrashed off.
Thanks, Bill. Look forward.
Okay, so now I've got 2 Mark 4 Golfs in my garage. The 1.6 that James bought, and this 2 litre that Stephen's just given me. I could swap the body panels off this car onto this one because the chassis is not damaged, but the 1.6 car is blue and this one is gunmetal grey. So we'll stick with this car, which means I'll be taking that motor and gearbox and putting it in there and swapping everything over. And have a look at this. Well. Now, Stephen wants those back, but I'm going to see if I can get them off him. He's only said he wants the struts back. And on the back, the top of the guard on the blue car is 71 centimetres high, and on this side it's 64 centimetres high. And when I get underneath and have a look, there's a set of king lowered springs right there, which is exactly what we were after for that car. So those springs will come out and go on there. That's a bonus. What we will be able to take off this car, as well as the motor and the gearbox, is this door and this whole section here. I'll cut that out, and James, who has a TIG welder, can in his own time splice it into there. But at least we've got the parts. With car build shows like Junkyard Wars, you quite often see guys rip an engine out of a donor vehicle, build a whole chassis or a car around it, and then hope it starts. That's a crazy way of doing it as far as I'm concerned. If I pull this motor out and I stick it in James's car and I haven't started it, and then when I get it over there it won't start, I won't know if there's a problem with the engine itself or in the way I've connected it. It's a basic rule here of Redline engine transplants that you always get the engine to start in the donor vehicle first. That way I know the thing runs and everything's fine, and then when I shift it and put it over into that 1600, if it doesn't run, at least I know the engine itself is okay and it must just be some sort of connection issue. Another thing to always do is to change the oil on a donor car, because you don't know what the history of it is, when it was last serviced. This thing's been sitting under a tree with no bonnet on it for God knows how long. When I dropped the sump plug on this, the first thing that came out was 2 cups of clear water. Probably got in through the inlet manifold in a storm or something. Now if I'd started the engine with that water in the oil and it had gone around, it could have caused all sorts of problems. So I've changed the oil and we're ready to go. Let's see if it'll start. Stephen said this was a good engine. Looks like he was right. The other thing that's starting this engine in the car tells me is that the wiring loom is all right. This was a parts car at Stephen's workshop, and when you get a car like this you never know if there's a relay missing or if the instruments don't work or something like that, but all the gauges and beepers and all that sort of stuff work. James has got a Mark 1 Golf Cabriolet that we're going to take that motor and gearbox out of the 1.6 and convert it from an automatic to a manual. And when we do that, I'm going to need the wiring loom out of this car. That's another project. Let's keep going on this one. I need to disconnect that drive shaft from the gearbox. But before I do that, I need to undo the hub nut. I can take the engine out without undoing this, but the problem is later on when I want to get the drive shaft out, it's almost impossible to lock this without the engine there and the drive shaft connected to the engine. It's a lot easier to do it now. When you're doing this, make sure on a front wheel drive that you support your spanner properly. If I just had the spanner on the end there on the short shaft, it'd tend to twist off rather than unlock. And here's another instance where I use my long torque wrench handle to get the leverage. So by supporting this up here, I get a full purchase on that nut without twisting the top off it. And it's just basically a great big nylock. There's no split pin. And so I can get that undone because of this support underneath it. I'd be doing this whether the car was on the ground or as it is here up on stands, so I can get underneath it. There's the nut.